How much are you looking to put into this thing? What do you want the dollars to do for you? That's so much more important than the product. If you got somebody who's just telling you this is the product for you before they even have a conversation with you, do they actually know what they're talking about? How can they? So if you're doing research on index universal life insurance policies, you're gonna find a ton of conflicting information out there. Are they any good? Do they all blow up? They're not gonna perform the way they illustrated. They're gonna earn you 10%. They're gonna outperform the market. There's tons of misinformation out there. And so I thought what I'd do today is spot check 3 policies that we have on the books here and run through 7 years worth of annual statements and show you how they've performed. So I gotta say first that this was not super easy to do. How do you measure performance of an index universal life insurance policy when, there may be 7, 8, maybe 10 different index selections that you can choose from? And I guess you could be one of the unlucky people out there that chooses the one index that performs the worst every single year, even if you bounce around. And so, how do we actually do this analysis? So what I thought I'd do is I'm going to show you how every single index on these policies performed for each of the 7 years where we have annual statements. Now, the only way to do that is for me to throw it into Excel. That way we can do some averages and kind of see where we end up. So I'm going to share my screen. We'll go through this Excel sheet and we'll see where we come out. Now, before we get into the details, the first thing I have to say is the fact that this is on an Excel sheet by itself should call everything I'm about to do into question, because I could put anything here that I wanted, obviously. And while I know that I transposed all these numbers correctly because I've double and triple checked, I just want to generally point out that if you're dealing with someone who's showing you a sales presentation or how something's going to work, and they're showing it to you in Excel, you should ask to see the actual numbers on company letterhead, not in an Excel sheet. With that disclosure out of the way, I know that I double and triple checked, and so here I am showing you Excel. There's no other way to do it for me, so take all of this with a grain of salt. In fact, assume that I'm wrong. I don't really care. Here we go. So this policy here was a Gendex Momentum policy, which is an Allianz, an old Allianz policy. Allianz happens to still be like the biggest player in the indexing space. This policy has an August 26th anniversary day. And so the reason I chose 3 policies is because I could easily cherry pick a policy that looked really good, but I wanted to pick 3 policies that had different anniversary days so you can kind of see how they performed, and they're all different. So here are all the returns for 2017 on this Gendex Momentum policy, and you can see that our average credit for the year, if you had just split up your money equally amongst these different options, would have been 11.2%. And if you want to double check that, we highlight them all. We look in the bottom right, average 11.2%. Great. Okay, moving on. 2018, here's all the returns. We had a couple zeros in 2018 in this Euro Stocks account. Fixed account went down a little bit. Average credit, 8.04. You want to double check me? Let's highlight it. Look in the bottom, 8.04. 2019, not a very good year. Zeros almost all the way around, except the blended annual point-to-point and the fixed account. Average credit, 0.55%. So this policy is going to blow up, right? Because it got a zero? No. So 2020, we move on. Again, we got 2 more zeros here. I believe this is the Euro Stocks account. We got a 4.2 in the S&P monthly, 10% in the annual point-to-point. Average credit here, 5.63%. 2021, average credit, 12.56%. 2022, all zeros except the fixed account. And 2023, 3.95%. If we were to average the performance over these 7 years in this particular policy, and you had split up the money evenly amongst all the accounts available, your average return would be 6.05%. 6.05%. And it's interesting to note that there's a bunch of index options that are perform really well. 7.5, 6.63, then we got a 4.6, a 5, a 5.18, 6.16, and the fixed account averaged 3.9. So those 7 years worth of returns, that's the actual performance of this August 26th anniversary, all pulled from the annual statements, all the different accounts on the policy. Average credit, 6.05%, with basically 2 years in a 7-year stretch of all zeros, 2019 and 2022. Pretty good. The next policy I want to show you is a January 5th anniversary. This is also an Allianz policy because that's who we were doing business with 12 years ago when we looked at all these policies. So January 5th anniversary, this is a Life Pro Plus policy. And you can see that this particular policy, the Life Pro Plus, has more options available to it than the Gendex Momentum policy did. And so, there's a lot more going on here. But we start in 2018. Why 2018 and why not 2017? Well, since this has a January 5th anniversary, we have 2024's numbers, which means the most recent 7 years are 18 through 24. So 2018, we got some huge credits: 17, 20, 18, 10, a 20, a 12, 12, 14, 10. Average credit, 12.35% for 2018. 2019, pretty much all zeros except the accounts that have a floor, a 2, and then the fixed account, 3.85. 2020, pretty decent. Average credit, 11.48%. We have it here at the bottom, and we also have it in the bottom right-hand corner. If you don't trust my math, 11.48. 2021, average credit 4.97. 2022, average credit 8.68. 2023, pretty much all zeros again. And then 2024, average credit 7.52%. This policy over the last 7 years, if you had split up the money into all the accounts available, you would have averaged 6.57 credit, 6.57% credit, which is pretty darn good, especially again, considering we've got 2 years in this stretch of 2 years in a stretch of 7. Why can't I say stretch of 7? 2 years in this stretch of 7 with a 0% return, and we're still averaging over a 6% rate of return, tax-free, which is obvious. Obvious? Awesome. And obvious. It's awesome and obvious because it's right here, 6.57. Obviously, that's more than 6, and it's awesome because it's more than 6. Wow. I guess I should probably stop right here. Maybe I should have said this on the outset because I know exactly how it's going to go down. There's going to be all those people out there. They've invested their whole mental intellect in proving that these don't work. And what they're going to say is 6.57% is not the actual rate of return because you got to take out fees. Come on, guys. You're better than that. Because what we're comparing here, we're not showing you what the rate of return is. We're comparing this to what number might be on the illustration. So what illustrated rate did you see on the illustration? The illustrated rate on the illustration is what we're basically showing you right here. This would be the illustrated rate. So if we're showing you an illustrated rate of 6, this policy outperformed those illustrations, those projections. These numbers also do not factor in any bonuses. This is just the movement of the index, no bonuses involved. And so again, why does this matter? Is this a rate of return? No, it's not a rate of return. If you're 1 year into the policy and you get a 10%, you didn't get a 10% rate of return, you got a 10% credit. Those are different things. And if you're arguing about that, you've already lost my respect because you're just trying to make the issue harder to understand. Compare this to the illustrated rate. On the illustration, if you showed a 6% rate of return on your illustration, this policy over the last 7 years outperformed it. So guys, I also got to tell you, this January policy is massive. It's actually trust owned. And so we hear all the time that these things don't work. You can't make any money. It's a bunch of garbage. And I'd like to show you. So I'm going to show you the statement from the January policy, and you're going to be shocked. All right. So this policy is trust owned. If you have a trust and you're investing dollars inside a trust, you're probably paying taxes. And I would just say, why are you doing that? Especially if you're looking for something that's lower risk. If you're looking for a low risk, tax efficient vehicle to own in a trust, you should consider this. You should definitely consider this. So let me share my screen again here. Let's just get into it. This policy has $11 million in the accumulation account. $11 million in the accumulation account. We paid a $2 million premium. We've got a $1.4 million interest credit in 1 year. A $1.4 million credit in 1 year. Here were our fees, $113,000 here, $30,000 here, $140,000 there. We ended the year at $14.6 million, $150,000 credit almost. We had $270,000, $280,000 in fees. We made over $1 million tax-free in a fixed vehicle. It's owned by a trust. That trust doesn't have to pay taxes on this because it's non-reportable. So anybody that says you can't make money in these policies, they don't know what they're talking about. So let me show you how they made it. So here is the actual annual statement. We pulled all these numbers from the annual statement and we got the money split up 25% here in the Bloomberg dynamic balance. We've got 25% in the S&P annual point to point, 25% in the NASDAQ, and 25% in the blended index. And you'll see that that money is exactly the same, 2.8 million in every single account, 2.8, 2.8, 2.8. We paid the same premium split up equally amongst the accounts, 547 going into those 4 accounts. And here's the interest credit. Interest credits on the illustration, the Bloomberg credited $461,000. The S&P credited $337,000. The NASDAQ, $263,000. And the blended index, $394,000. I don't know. Seems pretty compelling to me. It's a fixed product. It's non-reportable. You're not taxed on this. Now, are you going to get that every single year? No, we just looked at it. This policy got 2 years worth of all zeros out of the last 7. And yet, they're averaging over 6% tax-free in a fixed vehicle. Let's look at the last policy here. It's an October crediting day. This is also a Life Pro Plus policy, last 7 years. 2016 through 2017, average credit 13.6. 2018, average credit 4.47. 2019, average credit 6.96. 2020, 7% or 6.996. 2021, 10.02. 2022 was basically all zeros. Oh my gosh, this thing is going to blow up. Oh, except it didn't. 2023, 8.52%. Total average credit over those 7 years, if you had split up the money equally into all the accounts, including the fixed account, 7.26%, which you can compare to the illustrated rate on the illustration. If you're showing 5, 5.5, 6, 6.5, 7, this policy outperformed those projections over the last 7 years. Now, there's going to be someone out there that's like, oh, show me a policy where you're taking out income and then it's going to blow up. No, that's not how it works. If you were taking out income on this policy, you would have averaged 7.26. This policy has a fixed, contractually guaranteed loan rate at 5%. So you've got a 7.26 return over a 5% loan rate. You actually would have made money on the loans that you gave to yourself in this scenario over the last 7 years. If we had shown income on this policy would have outperformed the income projections if we were showing anything less than a 7.26% rate of return. So, should you put all of your money into an index universal life insurance policy because it's going to solve all your problems? No. In fact, most of you probably shouldn't. These policies are best suited for high income earners who have already maxed out things like Roth accounts. Maybe they make too much money to contribute to a Roth account, and the idea of a backdoor conversion just doesn't appeal to them for whatever reason. These policies are for people that are looking for tax-advantaged income because they need tax-advantaged income because they're already paying high taxes. Think people in California, high earners in California, high earners in high tax states. If you're making $35,000 a year and you're not funding your 401k, then no, you shouldn't be doing this. There are other things that you should be doing. Is this better than a whole life insurance policy? Not necessarily. It depends on what you want. What do you want? Do you want a CD alternative, a bond alternative with guarantees between 1 and maybe 2.5%, 3%? That's whole life. But guess what? The more risk you want to take, the more reward you should expect in return. And so if you want to take more risk than what a whole life insurance policy is going to offer you, then yeah, this is the better alternative. Is this better than a variable policy? No. Variable policy is the same situation. Do you want to take more risk? Do you want to take more risk? You can't take more risk in an index policy. You've got a capped upside and you got a floor. In a variable policy, you've got unlimited upside, unlimited downside. Most risk you can take in a life insurance policy, unless you want to add leverage. Should everybody add leverage? No, because it all comes down to what are you trying to do? What are your goals? What's your risk profile? How much are you looking to put into this thing? What do you want the dollars to do for you? That's so much more important than the product. If you got somebody who's just telling you this is the product for you before they even have a conversation with you, do they actually know what they're talking about? How can they? If you're looking at cash building life insurance, you're wondering, is this something that I should get into? Here's what I'm going to tell you. Here's what I'm going to offer up to you. Book a discovery call with us. Let's chat about it. We can learn about your goals, We can learn about your risk profile. We can learn about what is it that you want these dollars to actually do for you. Then we can show you a bunch of different options. And at the end of the day, our goal is to arm you with enough information to feel great about whatever decision you want to make with your dollars, because we believe that you are capable of making great decisions with your dollars, assuming you're working with somebody who's arming you with the facts. And that's our goal. So go to our website, leveragedwm.com. Up at the top of the screen, you can see book a meeting. You can chat with us one-on-one. And look at that guy. Did that happen automatically? Ding, ding, ding. Oh, what's happening?
We also have a new reactions video effect, and you can trigger these effects with a gesture.
Hey, book a meeting, book a discovery call at leveragedwm.com. I'm looking forward to talking with you soon. Until next time, take care.